All right, welcome everyone. This is our continuation meeting of March 26th. If I could have a roll call, please, for the members that are present here at the dais.
Shannon?
Here.
Leek?
Here.
Leek?
Here.
Morris?
Here.
Day?
Here.
Panty?
Here.
Okay. Our first item here is we're going to go, we do have one citizens' time comment, and I think, Clerk, if you could just mention that.
Yes, sir. I received an email because when this agenda went out, we encouraged the citizens to reach out to us either by email, phone, or dropping their comments off to the town. I received an email from Mr. Chuck Carnahan, located at 6651 Hunting Path Road. And he was asking about the proposed resolution 2020-06 regarding the remote attendance at meetings. And he had some suggestions, but I think if that's something that you all can maybe clarify with.
Yes, we'll have the attorney. Yeah, we'll have the attorney address those later. Okay.
And the address is 6654, not 51.
I'm sorry, 6654. Yes, he wrote 54. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. So to get to our first item on our agenda here, but before that, I'd like to ask Councilman Morris if he could lead us in invocation for tonight. I know that's not on the agenda, but I thought it would be most appropriate in our time here.
Yes, thank you, sir. Father, we approach your throne and thank you for the privilege that we have together as an elected body. And during these unprecedented times, we do ask for wisdom. We do pray that we would exercise caution as we go about our daily activities and not to take for granted the liberties and the things that we have here in this great country. We pray for our president, our vice president, for our elected leaders. We pray for our law enforcement officers. And Father, we pray for our health officials and our health workers. We pray that you'd give them wisdom, that you would protect them. And Father, that as our country goes through these times, we pray for wisdom from our elected officials, but also from each household. And Lord, personally, I just pray for the families that are staying at home now, that they would find different and creative ways of spending time together and using this time to benefit and to grow their family. Thank you again for the privilege that we have as elected members of this council. We worship you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you all very much. So we have our first item is our electronic meeting resolution, and that is going to give us the ability for example, one member, our vice mayor that is joining us electronically, to participate in the meetings. So as part of the packet, we're on page 2. If there's no questions about it, matter of fact, I maybe also have our attorney here, Brett, just kind of give a little bit of understanding about this, because it has developed over the last couple weeks with other localities, even with legislation going on in Richmond. And so I'll let you just speak on that in just a moment before we actually pass this. Sure. Yeah.
Virginia Code section 2.2, 3708.2 permits meetings to be held through electronic communication means under certain provisions. In this case, what we're invoking is A1 and A2 for the purposes of this ordinance, which permit the meeting to be occur in a remote body so long as there is quorum in the local body. Additionally, this allows the remote members to participate in the meeting and their minutes to be recorded through the meeting. Once this ordinance is adopted, it'll allow the members that are remote to participate.
Okay. And as we
Just before
sure.
you move on, Madam, you said point 2. Is it point 2 or point 1?
It's 1 and 2
Okay.
that we're looking at. So it's 2.2, 3708.2. Section A, subsection 1, and subsection 2.
Okay.
Is there a typo?
If you could look at our draft there and just make sure that we don't have a typo for that. And just for the listening audience as well, over the past week or so, we've actually had to have 2 emergency meetings, and by statute, we were able to electronically convene because of the fact of the state of emergency that was declared by the governor. And the purpose of that meeting was just to speak on that purpose of the state of emergency. We did have council present during this electronic meeting. We had chief of police, our clerk, our town manager, business manager, and the clerk did take minutes of that, and we will be presenting those minutes at probably our April regular town council meeting. So those will be in a draft form to be approved. And I think that had some concern because of the fact that we were all electronic, but because of the situation, by statute, we were allowed to have that type of meeting and limited to only the conversation regarding the emergency. So I think there's a little bit of confusion out there in the different cities and towns about how that works. But we definitely had followed every line of the law as it was at the time of the meeting. So did we have to make sure that we're passing for this resolution?
It should be point 2.
So 2.2, 3708 point
Point 2.
Point 2, if we could all make a correction there. And then everything else looks fine as far as the,
That's correct.
yep. Okay, so with that, we'll accept a motion to adopt this. And it would be effective immediately, too. Make sure that that's part of the motion.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to make a motion if, that we adopt the electronic meeting resolution.
Okay?
A second.
And second by Councilman Morris. Discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed? Abstentions? It passes unanimously. With that, we can now, with no objection, we're going to bring Vice Mayor on to be a part of our meeting here. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for joining us. Just want to make sure that you are able to be heard and that you can hear us good.
I can hear you.
All right, wonderful. Also participating remotely, we have Chris Kuhn, our business manager, and Roberto Gonzalez, our treasurer, that has also joined us through this application here. So with that, we can go ahead and move on to our next order of the business, is our long-term plan for future meetings. As we are going through this, as well as every other localities, we wanted to put this as a placeholder as far as what is the future for their other meetings. As we found out, and our attorneys has advised us, that there's certain legal requirements that, for example, the Planning Commission must do, the ARB meetings must do, or else they're, if once an application comes in. So maybe you can just speak about that briefly. Sure, go ahead.
I apologize. Can you clarify your?
Sure. My question more is just the fact that there's certain things, government has to continue moving as applications and meetings, public hearings, and because of our situation, there are deadlines that we're going to have to possibly meet electronic-wise as far as the other boards and commissions.
In that particular case, what would be invoked would be the same code section, I believe, but the subsection A3, which permits without quorum, where the public body is physically assembled at one location, if the governor's declared a state of emergency. Is that what?
Right. Yes, I guess so. Just making sure everybody understands that there are deadlines that will come up, that we're going to continue to either remotely have these meetings or have the other boards and committees as these deadlines come in to make sure that we meet those legal requirements, I guess. So any other questions or comments about planning for future meetings?
So what we've just enacted is the ability to do electronic meetings. How do we rescind it should we feel comfortable to then meet in public, go back to the norm once everything is cleared by our officials.
So I think by having this resolution, we tried to adopt this about a year or two ago just because of everybody can't participate for whatever reason. And by having this, I think it's a good resolution to keep on the books. It doesn't mean that we have to do it, but if for one reason a member is not physically able to come to a meeting, this at least allows them to participate and vote for that. We will always have to have quorum for a meeting, so we'll always have to have that 4-member minimum to conduct a meeting. So this, to me, I think this is just a good tool that we can always bring back whenever we need to throughout the year, not something that we'd have to rescind. And is that the way that most localities is doing it, I'm sure?
Yes, this is, some localities may have already had this particular ordinance on the books. It's been permitted for a few years now, and it just allows that in the event that you want to allow a member to participate remotely, they can do so under the circumstances as outlined in the ordinance.
And do we have guidelines for the members that are, that operate remotely as far as the meeting? For example, do they have to make sure they're online during the entirety of the meeting that they're attending online? That's just an example, but do we have guidelines to give to us, the members?
I'd let the attorney speak, but I would think that it would apply for the same rules as if the vice mayor was sitting here physically or sitting there. If she left the meeting, then the clerk usually notes it, but the presence, whether or not she's remotely or not, and I'll go ahead and let you speak, Vice Mayor.
I know that Emily and I had a discussion earlier when we were testing this out, that there are certain FOIA requirements, like the comments have been turned off, so the people who aren't in the room, we can't talk to each other. We have no access to have private conversations or anything. All those things have been disabled.
Right. So hopefully, did I answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
and I'm sure it will be followed up by guidelines that we need. I just want to make sure that, and as you said, other localities are doing it, but I want to make sure that there are guidelines that we don't abuse, because we have those set guidelines that we follow if we're remotely attending the meeting.
Right. I would think that we would follow our same code of ethics and things like that as far as whether or not, there should be no separation or no, because they're electronically, they're here, they're attending, they're voting, the discussion, everything should be the exact same as physically here or not here. So I would think our own existing rules of procedure would follow, but I'll let you speak.
That's correct. Remote council members are subject to the same rules and guidelines that they otherwise would be. Their participation is to be noted in the minutes. The only sort of exception is that their remote location is not open to the public, as provided for under the code.
Right, okay.
So I have one question. So this pertains to the Planning Commission, which we only have 5, counting myself as a liaison. And then I'm not sure how many the ARB have, 6 or so. Does this pertain to them as well? So that we can continue with our commission meetings?
Yeah, I think what we just passed, of course, will be the participation of members of town council and appointed boards through the electronic communication.
Thank
So
you.
that allows, yes, correct. Yeah, just making
That's
sure.
correct. The ordinance expressly provides for the ARB and the Planning Commission to also
Thank you.
Yep,
be able to use this
As long
statute.
as you have quorum present.
quorum present, biggest thing, yep.
So
Heard
that-
and
so
be
it
heard
has
as
to-
well.
The quorum has to be,
Physically present.
Present,
Okay,
to
got it.
pass it, and then, yes.
okay, thank you.
Yep, and I think there is some stipulations, if I remember correctly. Isn't there like only so many times a year one member can, or is that, am I thinking something else?
The resolution states two.
Yeah, 2 times per year, right, yeah. So,
Okay.
all right. With that, any other questions regarding that? Okay. Also, I had on the agenda item the emergency declaration. I've gotten phone calls regarding why hasn't the town declared an emergency? Why haven't we? I had a official from Novant Health that actually requested the town react. That request is a handout, I believe, as well, that we have there from Kim Galansky. Part of the response for that, actually, Mayor Porter out of Occoquan responded to Kim. Because of our size of the locality, being under 5,000, we are not able by law to declare. And matter of fact, Brett, if you could kind of highlight on that as well.
The provision that allows localities to declare emergencies under the Virginia Code defines a political subdivision that may declare emergency as with regards to a town of population of 5,000 people or more. Counties and cities are considered political subdivisions under the Emergency Services and Disaster Law, but not a town. And that is if Section 146.16 of the Virginia Code.
Okay. Do we understand about that? And that's why we haven't been able to do that.
And of course, because Prince William is direct on, we're following after them. It's anything that Prince William County enacts, we're following Prince William. They have the resources, they have everything that they would need, and we're just following after Prince William County. So good explanation.
Okay.
And
All
that
right.
was conveyed to the individual who sent in the
Yes,
the
yes,
message?
correct. Yep,
Okay.
as well. Anything else about the emergency declaration? If not, moving on to our current budget impact. There I'll ask for our treasurer to give us a snapshot of that, and I know that you've been working, I think, with other individuals about just what's going on and how that might be an impact.
Good evening, council. Can y'all hear me correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Chris and I have met with Connor as the finance chair to discuss possible impacts on the current budget when it comes to meals tax, which will probably get affected the most. And to be completely honest with you, it's pretty hard to tell right now because as of right now, I've only been collecting the February ones, which of course nothing has been impacted in that. Come mid-April is when we would have a better idea of how this whole situation has impacted the restaurants and other businesses. I know that I believe Chris has talked to a few of the current restaurants and may have some more information on what the feel is with them.
Chris Kuhn, you're up.
Good evening, council. I actually have not reached out to the restaurants yet. That is part of my plan, just to check in on everybody and see how they're doing. But just like Roberto said, as of right now, we do not have updates on how the restaurants were affected. We can expect that it's going to slow down, especially for March with the stay home and all that getting pushed out. But this is also an issue that a lot of other localities are running into, and to go forward with that, we actually have a meeting tomorrow, Northern Virginia Regional Commission. A lot of the towns in Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, they're going to be meeting to kind of discuss what the plans are for the budget and how everybody else is approaching it. So this is not we're not in a vacuum here, that everybody else is feeling the same thing and don't really know how to proceed. So I'll have more information tomorrow and over the weekend, reaching out to the restaurants to really see how they're being affected and see what we can do to assist, if anything.
Yeah. Last week, we did reach out to a few of them. One of the ones that, once the dining they were one of the few restaurants early that volunteered to close their dining inside only. The very first day that happened, surprisingly enough, their volume through the drive-through was the same or more than if they had dine-in customers. Typically, they mentioned that they usually have about a 30% in dining and 70% outside drive-through business. So going 100%, they were at the same or if not higher numbers. Some of them are looking at to reduce some of their hours, or for example, if they were open at 6 in the morning, that they're going to go from 7 and maybe close an hour early as well. We offered the police department cones if they needed to help with direction or anything, since a lot of them do have either drive up or mobile app services So no one's taken up on that offer. We also, I think, yeah, we just I put up our signboards today with the message about that the restaurants are open or continue to open for their walk-in, but no dine-in, and also limiting the walk-up to 10 members coming up to the restaurant. So obviously, the restaurant's not the only impact. I mean, as we will see, that's one of the numbers here, but I think we need to obviously look at other ones. I don't know, Councilman Leak, you want to make sure I'm not recognizing somebody that hadn't had their hand up to speak on that.
Sure. So as you walk through most of our local taxes, obviously real estate tax has already been accounted for and has come in over budget. Outside of that, bank stock will be fine. BPOL is obviously off the fiscal year of 2019, so those payments will be coming in on April 20th. Cigarette tax, I'm sure we will see some sort of dwindle in that. Meals tax, the hard thing to be able to understand is going to be what April is affected by. Obviously, March we had 2 weeks that were good, and then these last remaining weeks will be impacted. I believe that we'll be able to do the backside calculations after we speak with some of these business owners in regards to the restaurants to be able to really understand what the decrease is going to be. And I think we can easily do that on a weekly basis if we reach out to these restaurants and understand what they're down in sales and then just do the reverse math to be able to see the impact. Sales tax will be another one that is impacted this year, obviously, since that is we collect that there through the county. But those are the ones. I've done a doomsday worst case scenario, and I think that even with the worst case scenario, we'll still be able to make necessary cuts on the expenditure sides to finish the year in the black without having to pull anything out of reserves. So I'm not worried at all.
So worst case is 50% less? I mean, what did you calculate?
I went in and looked at worst case scenario, and I think that we would be down probably around 200K possibly, but that's very, very conservative on those numbers in regards to the amount of loss. I mean, you're talking about losing over the next 4 months where we would be collecting almost $250,000 in meals tax and saying that we're only going to collect half of that or 45% of that, and I don't think that's actually necessary. I think that would be very, very conservative. I think that we'll be much better off than what we are, but Chris is going to be working on reaching out to the restaurants to understand what their trend is and decline, and then I will sit down with Roberto and work the numbers backwards to be able to see the trend that comes in. The hard part is that you won't know to what's really happening until May 20th when we get that meals tax payment for April, and that's unfortunately going to be close to the end of budget season. But that's just, unfortunately, that's how it's really going to be unless we start working the numbers backwards now.
So dealing with the current budget impact, any questions regarding that? I know we have different other things on here that we'll highlight on. Vice Mayor.
Do we know if any of the restaurants have just completely closed, or are most of them open for, we don't know?
Chief, you want to?
Cookies and Cream and Swirlies have closed completely, but other than that,
Cookies and Cream and Swirlies is the only establishments that we know for a fact have closed.
Okay.
Councilman Day, you have a?
yeah, just one thing. I understand, of course, the restaurants are what impact.
Just want to make sure you're able to hear him. Just want to make sure. Can you pull your mic just a little closer? Sorry, we really have to. Yep.
Yeah, I understand that this may not impact the budget, but what about the non-restaurant businesses? Have they reached out for assistance in any way?
Chris, you want to answer that? I'm not aware of any, but I'm not sure if you're aware of any businesses. I know we did something proactively. We put up on the website about small businesses and just the relief and the different localities that they can reach to.
Can you repeat the question? All I heard was something other than the restaurants.
Sure.
Yeah, other than the restaurants, obviously they're the ones that affect our budget, but the non-restaurant businesses in our town, have they reached out for assistance, or have we reached out to them? Is there any, conversation going on with those businesses as to where they are and if there's anything that we can do to help?
I would have to second what Mayor said, really putting out the small business loans that we sent, kind of like compiled information from all different resources. We had some of the applications for those small business loans. We had some information from the county as well as the state to send it to them. Because based on what came from the state, with the fact that if they can meet the social distancing and the 10 individuals without including employees, and they could stay open. Some have chosen just to close, even if they could technically stay open, but they've just decided to close. So I can reach out and see if there's anything we can do, but that's tomorrow. I'll really get some ideas of what other localities are either planning to do or have done, and see if there's anything that we'd be able to move forward with. But at this time, I'm not aware of anything that we can do other than providing that information from the county and state.
Can you put your findings briefly in your Friday report?
Yeah, do you want me to do like an overview of what we discussed about the entire budget impacts and what other localities are doing? Just kind of do an overview.
I mean, not necessarily that. I was thinking more right now just for our businesses, what you find.
Oh, yes, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Other questions? So that would be current budget impacts. So then let's go to our next item on the agenda, without objection, our proposed town business stimulus package. As we have heard from other localities and through different other forms of media, what other places are doing, and I open that up for comment or for discussion. I know, speaking to a couple of the mayors, town managers throughout our area, for example, I just spoke this evening to the town of Herndon and how they're looking as far as either, as we've seen, different localities maybe put a freeze on the collection of the meals tax, and that they would still continue to report every month, but perhaps not collect the monies or until like the end of the fiscal year, which would be like in June. So put a 1 or 2 month delay in the payments until then. As we've seen some of the localities, I think there was one in particular that decided to try to refund some of the tax money to the restaurants, which I'll let the attorney weigh in on that, but I'm not sure how legally that could even be possible.
That's correct. That is not permissible under the code.
Right. But delaying the receiving of the payments,
Yes, the town can by ordinance amend the due date for the payment of meal taxes for the year 2020 by delaying the due date for 30 days pursuant to Virginia Code, Section 58.13916.
okay.
And what's
So-
not prohibited by law? Or not permitted?
Refunding.
Refunding. You can't just,
Yeah, so I sat down, I spoke with probably half dozen business owners a couple weeks ago, and then also I got on the phone with Councilman Morse to start talking about what ideas we could do in regards to quote-unquote a stimulus package with our town. So I reached out to Martin and Olan, and I asked two things, one in regards to the meals tax, and then one in regards to the B-poll. Mainly in regards to meals tax, I agree with council here that you cannot go about doing a rebate back, but what you can do is if they pay on time, you can give a percentage back pursuant to Virginia Code 15.2-1104. In that instance, you could go back 25%, which is technically a percentage point back. So here's the way that we need to be looking at it in my regards is, one, what does the restaurants need? Two, how can we make it work within our fiscal budget? Obviously, we need to make sure that we can sustain it and not have to necessarily fund it out of reserves or anything along those lines, because we still need money to operate. So what I see is that's where I've tasked Chris with reaching out to each restaurant to understand exactly what they're looking for. From that, I think that council needs to put this on the agenda for our April meeting to truly understand what we're looking to do and how we can assist. I think how I look at it is they need cash on hand now to bridge them until the federal government can come in with these SBA disaster relief loans. So if that means that we're giving a percentage back if they're paying on time, or if we're deferring the payment to a later date to give them cash on hand to be able to float payroll or whatever is necessary. I mean, it's more than just their business staying alive. It's having their employees be at work. This is our local economy. If we lose these restaurants and these mom and pops, I mean, we're going to lose a significant portion of our budget. Yes, we have two large accounts per se with having drive-throughs, but at the end of the day, we're here for our small businesses, and this is how we can assist them through this time. I think we can make the numbers work. As I stated earlier, we were on a call with Roberto and Chris, and I went through the budget line by line and found a significant amount of savings or cuts that we could do to be able to save on top of the projected lost revenue. I think we would still have money in hand to be able to assist in regards to giving not a rebate, but a percentage back if they paid on time, as well as deferring the payment to maybe May 20th, there being if we weren't comfortable doing June 20th. Outside of that, I disagree. I don't think we should waive the meals tax or reduce it. That doesn't do anything. That doesn't put more money in their pockets necessarily. If they're able to actually see the money back, because again, this is just a 4% that they collect for us. In regards to BPOL and Councilman Day's question in regards to what about the other businesses outside of our meals, we could look at possibly lowering our BPOL rates. Bit tricky for the mere fact that we don't know how this is actually going to affect each individual business. We're a little bit in the blind, and we're not going to know for the next about 45 days. But one option would be to look at reducing BPOL rates. Granted, our BPOL rates are a lot more attractive than what the counties are currently. So we have that to our advantage. But that's one option. The other option is to defer the April 20th BPOL payment, which is the due date, to May 20th or June 20th. Again, that would only give them cash on hand until possibly if they're taking advantage of these SBA disaster loans to do so. Otherwise, they would just be robbing Peter to pay Paul and could get in financial hiccups there. But it's something to think about, and everyone do their homework at home and come back on April and see what their thoughts are.
So you will present to the council or have Roberto or Chris to put some ideas together and for the council to actually look at?
Well, I just gave the ideas, and I'd like council to do the homework to look at some of the options on what they think,
Right.
to come and give some ideas.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
So, two questions. The first one has to do with the refund of a percentage. The attorney, I wanted to understand, the attorney said, no, it cannot be done under law. But what's the difference between what she said no to, but Mr. Leek said it can be done? What's the difference?
Very good question.
You want me to take it, or you got it?
Yeah. Go ahead. He asked for the attorney. Go ahead, Brett. I'll let you.
Ask the attorney.
Yeah.
Okay?
Uh,
You're just an elected official.
What Councilmember Leek was referencing is that the town can, by ordinance, grant a discount for early payment of meals taxes, and I believe that's what Councilmember Leek was referencing. So essentially, it would be for restaurants that pay their meals tax early. By ordinance, you could adopt a discount for those restaurants that do that.
Sort of the same way the state of Virginia has, where you collect a tax and you say if you collect 6%, you'd be able to save or keep back 0.5% for the collection of it. and you only mail the check for the 5.5%. But I think that's the same sort of way of saying that by statute, you can do this. And that's different from than just giving them the money back. So I think that's probably where the clear definition is. You just can't. Like, I think one of our local cities just did that 2 days ago.
That's correct. It's specific, it's a discount based on an early payment is what the discount is for, not just a rebate or a refund.
And my second question, thank you. And my second concern is if there's a delay in the submittal of the meals tax, I am wondering if that's going to cause some hardship when the due date presents itself. Because if there's a delayed date, of course these businesses are going to use that money that they've collected, that they're supposed to remit back to the town or to the town, if it would cause a hardship when it's due time. So, I think what Mr. Leek said earlier, in that we need to do our individual research to see if that is the avenue that we want to take, because we have to take these things into consideration. I don't know if a good way in getting ideas is beginning tomorrow when Chris goes out or speaks with these businesses, maybe to present a way or we could ease the burden, and then to see the feedback. Because we could sit here and pretend like we know how to run businesses. They're the ones who do it. So let them who are being impacted by it listen to the suggestions that we are able to do by law, and then just get the feedback and in some way communicate it to council.
Right.
That's the first time, bro, since I'm sitting on the desk. You've agreed.
Well, I'm agreeing with you too, though, from down here in the dungeon.
Yeah.
But one of the things Councilman Leek said is absolutely right on point as far as I'm concerned. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I want to do whatever we can do for our town to help them, our business. Because if business closes, we lose more than just a business. We lose part of our town family. And we take pride in our businesses. As long as it doesn't put us in the red, as long as we can have our operation continue on. I don't want to do anything that may risk our operations. And Councilman Leek was very good with, as he stated that. So I guess my question is for Chris Coons. So you're going to be talking to the businesses, Chris, and kind of get some ideas of, and you're going to be talking to some of the other towns to kind of find out what they're doing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll be reaching out, and just like you all said, is really trying to see what would benefit the restaurants. Part of our discussion with Councilman Leek and Roberto earlier today, we were saying, would that collection fee cut from the meals tax, would that benefit them? Or would maybe if we could push some advertising on social media like we've done, a couple times the past 2 weeks, what are they seeing benefits from stuff like that? And just kind of asking them, what is it that we can do to help? And then, bringing it back to you all and, the options that are viable and legal, of course, that, we'll be able to do.
Sure, because we can be pragmatic about this, and I know you're talking to the towns. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, but that's and I want to commend Councilman Lee, Councilman Morris, yes, even you. I said that, and Roberto, Chris, all y'all for doing what you're doing here, because this is important stuff for our town here. I mean, very, very important, and they're going through tough times. So I just appreciate, not only as a councilman, but a resident of this town, because I try to frequent these restaurants as often as I can. Obviously, you look at my belly, it's too often probably, but, I believe in our town. I believe in our businesses, and I want to do what we can do to help them, as long as it doesn't put us at jeopardy for our operational costs.
Right. And just for example, go ahead, I'm sorry. But
Chris, do we know, is a state putting any, helping to the businesses about those restaurants, those 6% taxes? Do we know anything about that?
The question, Chris, did you hear him okay?
Yes, so really the best way that, or the best resource that they have available right now to help is the low interest rate small business loans. That's probably the number one best resource that the state's offering right now. But really it's more just facilitating, but that's the one resource that we've been able to find for our restaurants and businesses and things like that. So that's why, we tried to get that information out to as many businesses as soon as possible. So hopefully if our businesses want to take advantage of it, they can, get in there before some of the other, businesses throughout the state or country.
And speaking to one early last week, I mentioned to him about different programs as this was coming online, and he appreciated the offer that the town might come to a resolution with, but he said, honestly, I would still probably end up paying it every month, just because their business platform is that since they've collected it, he would feel more comfortable continuing paying what he collected versus needing that extra cash, which could be, anywhere from zero to, tens of thousands of dollars each month that they need that. So it was kind of comforting to know that, and it might be where if this was the decision for the council to do, that doesn't mean everyone has to participate in it. So only if you needed to. So, for example, that would be a good example. I know for a fact that this one restaurant owner made that comment, so it was kind of good to know that.
So if they
it
don't
might be
pay, because even if we waived it for the month, then at the end of that month, then they're paying 2 months.
Correct.
And that could be,
Yeah, and
I
it's-
think is what Councilman Morris
I
said,
think-
that can be a real
I
hardship.
think we can just go to prorated, like not collecting it at once. We will set a time that, let's say, March meal tax, they will pay on May, and then May, April, it will go to June, go that way, then set aside some percentage for each month, then they will, after that, they will pay that percentage.
Right. I think as our attorney mentioned, the only provision that we would have is maybe, did you say a 30-day extension?
Yes, the
According-
town, it's by ordinance, you can extend the payment of meals taxes by 30 days.
Right. So we would have to create a new ordinance if we were to change that to make 60 days? In other words, or does the state statute only limit us to 30-day extension?
You can, it's, the due date can be delayed. Both provisions require an ordinance.
Okay.
But I can confirm, give me a moment to confirm.
Okay, all right.
Like,
So-
if you go to 60 days, we can pay, they can pay, 60 days prorated, and then when everything settled, then they can pay by the percentage, top of that. They're not
Well, they
paying at
have to
once.
pay the full amount within 30 days, is that correct? So they can't pay like 10% each month to catch up, if I understand this
Right.
correctly.
So
They
it's
have to
basically the
pay-
money that they've collected of when the payment would come into the town, so,
It's a danger of a credit card effect.
yeah.
Exactly.
And you have to realize they're 30 days behind, so for the month, they've already collected it, held on to it for 30 days, and then balance their receipts to then pay the tax for the previous month. Chris, I think you had your hand up, so.
I did. Just one thing that I wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page about is if we go and we pass an ordinance for, the business collects the meals tax, the 4% for the town, and then when they come to pay us, if we were to offer a percentage of that meals tax to be able to be the collection or administrative fee, when we pass that ordinance, it will be for every restaurant, regardless of if they need it or not. So if they paid on time, whatever percentage that would be, if it was 10% of the meals tax they collected, if they paid it on time or earlier, they would get that money back. Or they wouldn't have to pay, just like you mentioned. So that's for every single restaurant moving forward, because it'd be passed through ordinance. And then to remove that, we would have to take another action. And I'm sure the attorney would be able to give some background on that as well.
Yep.
Can you repeat the question?
I was just saying that if we pass the ordinance to start having the admin collection fee not be required to be paid by the restaurant, so if they pay their 4%, and we were to set a limit, the 10%, 15%, whatever of the meals tax collected, the restaurant would not have to pay. That's for every single restaurant, because the ordinance would be for any restaurant or any entity that collects meals tax. And then we'd have to have another change ordinance again if we ever wanted to remove that.
So I think I understood, you still have to look at the question, look on your face. He's just referring to, it applies to all the restaurants, is what you're saying, Chris, that it equally applies to all of them with the
Correct.
same ordinance.
If we start doing the admin collection break,
right,
then every restaurant would be
have
able
that
to utilize
ability.
that.
Right.
It wouldn't be a, participation. If they need it or not, everyone would be able to participate.
Yep.
Because that's the way we would have to change the ordinance.
All right. Councilman Leake, looks like you're,
Just remember, every restaurant in this town is a small business at heart. Just because you have a flagship name on it doesn't mean that the franchisee is not a small business person.
no,
I mean,
absolutely.
From our name brands, from Chick-fil-A to Subway to Papa John's, all of these are franchises. So at the end of the day, they are all small businesses.
Yep.
So what's your point?
What, go ahead.
My point in those regards is to where if I was listening to the business manager correctly, Mr. Kuhn there, he was stating that this would affect to all restaurants, which is true. So maybe coming across that not all of them need it, but in those instances, I think all of them do need it. I think that all of them are small businesses and all of them do need it in some way, shape, or form to help them through this time.
Well, I definitely believe that this puts a little more pressure on you, Chris, to make sure you just, again, I agree with Chris Morris with his comments. You need to call these people and ask them what they need. If they need it, we need to know about it. If they don't, let's know about it. So let's find out and see where we are.
And if I can add to that, let them know the consequences, because I'm really peculiar about the hardship that they may face. Because, I mean, when you look at, I think 92% of Americans using their credit card and making minimum payments, it's, this is the same effect. Should we go the route, as a council, should we go the route of giving a delayed submittal in the meals tax? So, Chris, just make sure that they understand, if that's one of the suggestions you're going to bring to them, that they realize it can only be delayed for a certain period according to the ordinance, but also the hardship that they may face if they don't pay it and then wait until their business, because we don't know how long we're going to be in this dilemma.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And Chris, if you need help in reaching out to the businesses after 3 tomorrow, let me know, so I can jump in and meet some of them with you if you want to.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, obviously this isn't going to get decided right now. I just think that in the meantime, until we come up with our plan, that we definitely need to be cognizant of late fees and things like that, and, be very empathetic to our businesses, and also that we need to do more of the social media posts for, once we find out which businesses are still open, we can help them, by putting it out more every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I tag on that, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
So what's the action leaving here? Where do we go with the suggestions before our next month's meeting?
Which is just 10 days away or so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it something where we route it through Chris and Chris gets all the necessary information? Because we're going to need a resolution, something on the agenda for our next meeting if this is the case. So the action item coming from between now and the next meeting.
I think I probably got a good pulse for everyone here on the dais, and please tell me if it's not, that we're here to help the businesses, and we want them to survive, and especially the restaurants that are being hit right now with having to lay off most of their employees to only have a certain percentage coming in right now. So I think creatively, we would definitely proactively have something for the council once he finds the information to act on and be prepared for at the next meeting.
Yeah, is this something Chris can send out to us well before the next, I mean, as he talks?
Sure, it should be part of his daily report.
Yeah, okay, exactly, okay, thank you.
Daily report on the virus that's been going on, and as well as his weekly report, but absolutely.
How would we arrive at the consensus, though, once?
Well, I think
Chris
we all
pulls it in?
agree that we should be helping. Now, how?
No,
would
that's
we
not, helping them is not on the agenda.
Right.
Agreeing on them, if you don't agree, you shouldn't be on the dash.
Right, so really what we're talking about is money.
Yes.
So by looking at that, and maybe he finds out, go ahead, Chris, you've been like trying to wave here.
Sorry. Yeah, so my plan was if I can reach out to all the businesses and try and identify which ways they would like us to help, if possible. And then if anything requires a resolution or a draft ordinance, then more than likely what I'd end up doing is I would be providing a draft resolution or a draft ordinance. And then when it comes to like the percentage or the dollar amounts, that's probably when I would leave it blank. So then what we would do is we would have some time to discuss it, whether it's work session or in the actual meeting. And then that way, when you all come to a consensus, if you've got options, 1 through 4, and then you guys can come to the consensus which you would like to do. And then if there's any percentages or dollar amounts, and that way, myself and Roberto will be there. And, if you all want to discuss, a couple options, reach out to us so we can try and calculate those numbers prior to the meeting. That would be beneficial. But just like Mayor said, my plan is that with dealing with this stuff, I'm going to have to let you all know on a regular basis what's going on and what options I'm hearing pretty much from this point forward.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just, and Chris, you're right on target there. I would just recommend, and you've probably already done this, you've been in this business a while, is check and see again what the other towns are doing. Some of the businesses, they don't know what they don't know. So they may not, you may be able to furnish an idea or some, that one of the other towns is using or whatever. So my recommendation is you reach out to, kind of do the homework first, and then, get with our businesses, and again, they don't know what they don't know, or they may educate you as well of things they could do, so.
Yeah. Last week, we had Chris put together, I can't remember if it was Kim or Emily that reached out to every business owner to get their cell phone numbers and point of contact. So we kind of have proactively been working on this behind the scenes over the last few days.
Restaurants, not all the businesses yet.
Right, no, correct, restaurants, so clarification, correct. Yep. Vice Mayor.
I just want to say, I don't think this needs to be said, but I'm just going to say it out loud because we're all thinking it. I know that we have line items in our budget that are budgeted that we might not have necessarily spent the money, but I think we need to be very careful. If there's any place that we can save that money for right now until we know how this is going to come out in the end, I think we need to do it and put things off.
You're spot on, Vice Mayor. Since this has happened, I think it's been on the daily basis of going through with Roberto, where are we over? There are some good things that, as we came into this, there are some numbers that I believe we were actually up almost, if you go by our budget, up almost 50,000 in our meals before coming into this. So,
Let me pull it up for you.
yeah, so I believe that was it. Roberto, why don't you kind of give some of those numbers off the bat there?
Vice Mayor and Council, we have been already in discussions with that, Connor, myself, and Chris. So we do have a plan if we needed to really act on. We have identified items where we were definitely just be more mindful of the spending. And so we are thinking about that. We are thinking about where we can kind of trim a little bit more and where we should be more, just more conscious of what we're spending. That's definitely something we've been discussing already.
I figured you were, but I just wanted to put it out there for the listening public that we are being conscientious about those things.
We definitely are. We definitely are.
Absolutely.
Roughly, we're missing 2 restaurants meals tax for last month, but with running the back calculations on it, I think that as of right now, we're up 51,000, but
We can't hear Connor.
Yeah, we can
as
get
of
that.
right now, we're up 51,000 year over year. And I believe after we bring in the next two restaurants that are missing, we'll be up and around 63,000 year over year.
So up to about 63 before this crisis kind of hit our economy.
Which is almost a full month of meals tax.
Right.
So we're on track to do over 800,000. Now granted, with the recent things that are happening, we'll most likely be falling below that. But we're on track to hit over 800,000, and we've only budgeted 700.
Yeah. Of course, with a couple of the new restaurants going online, that's been very helpful, I think, as well. Yep.
Question for Roberto concerning the meals tax. If we were to, over the next few months of the calendar year, come in at 50%, would we still hit our target?
What was the question again?
If we were to, over the next months, the remainder of months in this calendar year, if we were to cut our meals tax by 50%, would we still hit our target of 700,000?
We would hit, if we did 50%, and this is just an estimate, we would be around the 640,000 range. And once again, this is just an estimate. If we were to go worst case scenario, 50% of what we currently collect by the end of, but for the remaining of the year, it would be around we would end up around $640,000.
That's a good response. And I was just trying to get everyone to understand the practicality of how you work with the budget. Because if we were to presumably say we're going to miss out on half of our income from the meals tax and still drop just below our projected amount, I mean, that's good. We're in a good place, and the ideas that are going to be coming forward is going to benefit not just the council with its income, but also the businesses.
We're in a lot better place than some localities, I can tell you that.
Thank you, Roberto.
Roberto's numbers are spot on. The number at 50% for the next 4 months would be 650,829.
650, so less than 50. So even though we're up almost 61, by the time it all nets back out, even at half.
And that does not include the two restaurants that are not come in yet, where I project that they'd probably be around 12,000, so I think we'd be up 662.
Okay. Other thoughts or concerns? With that, we'll move on to our next is our proposed budget work session of the proposed budget. We have that as a handout that we should have on the dais here. And I'm not sure, Roberto, you want to lead this? We should be looking at proposed draft budget with a 32620 top header.
So yes, Council, the budget I presented to you guys today was, I actually from the last meeting, went back just to review some of the numbers. There's a few amendments I needed to make in the PD department, still staying within the budget. And we also Chief did hire a new officer that came on starting today that elected to not take on the family plan. So that was actually removed from the department expense. What I did with the remaining balance is I went ahead and added it to the CIP fund. This is just going forward what we have discussed up till now. Of course, this budget will probably change with everything that's currently happening. And basically, we definitely want to get some kind of direction or feel as to from each council, if there's any concerns or any specific questions they have on the line items presented.
And just for clarification, Roberto, for the listening audience, this isn't an additional officer. This is a replacement of an officer that has left.
Correct. Chief, actually, the officer is coming in under what we had projected, so that's the modification I did to actually to be transparent on the fact of how much this person is coming in at, which is a little bit less than what we had projected.
Okay. All right. Questions regarding this? A lot of time's been obviously spent to put the numbers here.
I think
Just bring-
the question for council is, how do you want to attack the budget? Do you continue moving forward like everything's going to be okay July 1, and then amend as necessary as we get closer? Or do we go worst case scenario now and start cutting revenue projections and expenditures? I think that's the number one question on the table.
So really, we're looking at what is going to be, as we look in this crystal ball of July 1 going forward. You know, did we recover? Did we recover as some project? Did we not recover? Did a lot of things go bad? And so you're right. It's a projection that we need to each probably go through and share our thoughts on.
My gut at the moment, I'd like to hear other people's opinions, other town councils and members' opinions. My feeling at the moment is to pass it as it is and amend it later, because again, there's just no way. We're in uncharted territory. We just don't know what it's going to look like. It's hard to predict.
Okay. Councilman Morris, you have any thoughts? Or
I feel like it's hard to make a decision right now. We have gone through this budget quite a number of times. We've gotten some great inputs from different people. I think the committee has done a good job in just going through it with Roberto and with Chris. I feel like we should, my personal gut feeling is things are going to turn around. I think we should stick to the budget that's here. I think it wouldn't hurt to go through one more time to see what areas we could cut back, especially hearing that Mr. Leek and Chris and Roberto had a meeting today and discussed some areas that they could cut. So I would like to go through it one more time and maybe hear from the three of them, what areas did they highlight that could be cut, and just see how we can incorporate what we've already done, look at it and bring it to council for a decision. But I think we should maintain and stay on the same track that we've been on for the last few months in going through the budget.
okay. Chris Kuhn?
Just one question I had for all the councils. I just want to make sure everybody knows, with this budget, we aren't changing any of the tax rates. So I just wanted to make sure you all are okay with moving forward with at least that public hearing. So then this way, maybe the numbers might have to change. So we might have to adjust when we were planning on doing the budget work session or the budget public hearing. But as long as you all are still on board, I'd like to keep the public hearing for the tax rates the same. Is there any objection to that?
Agree on with the tax rates.
Didn't hear any objection. Let me just make sure Mr. Morris doesn't have.
I'm just looking here at what we decided on. Do you remember what I decided on?
Equalizing the rate at a 135, sir.
No, I don't think.
I know you're lying. I see the look on your face. You ask him.
So this was
Nice try, Connor.
Yeah, this was to keep the same tax rate and not equalize, which the difference on that, if I remember right, is about, what, 30,000-ish?
31,000.
Yeah, 31,000 if we had to bring that down. So, other thoughts? Sure.
Exactly what Chris said. I agree 100%.
Okay.
We don't know what we don't know right now. So what's another month? Let's go. Let's see what happens. I too, I'm optimistic. I think things are going to turn around. So I'd like to go another month. So I agree with what Councilman Moore said.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I do agree that we don't know what we don't know right now, but I think we need to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And maybe, the Finance Committee can start working on I know you've said you've gone through it, but, bare bones, the worst possible scenario, at least start working in that direction and hope that we don't have to use it.
Okay. Roberto?
Vice Mayor, and that is a scenario that we have, or myself and Councilman Connor and Chris have already had discussions on that as well. We're trying to be proactive on this budget, but at the same time, we definitely want to hear from you, the council as a whole, as to what kind of direction they want us to go with. But we do have those plan Bs as to where we could modify stuff as well to present to you, council, and let you guys decide.
Okay? All right. Madhu, do you have any comments or thoughts?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other discussion regarding this?
Well, we had two questions on the table. Your first question was how to approach it, and then Chris brought out the question of, do we continue with our April 14th tax rate meeting?
Right.
So everyone's good with the tax rate meeting on the 14th still? Correct?
I think so.
I am.
Yep.
Excellent. And then to answer Vice Mayor's question from last meeting in regards to Prince William County's public hearings, they're 4/14 and 4/16 at 7:30 down at the county. So their first meeting is the same night as our meeting in regards to their rate increase. And then the second question, I forget who fielded or who asked it, but what would the county's rate and increase be? And walk you through it real quick. So on a $600,000 house, it'd be about 270, 500,000, 225, 400,000, 180, 300,000, 135 in regards to those increases.
That's the increase.
That is the increase on
For
top
that.
of what would already be additional. But that's not with a tax assessment increase either, though.
Correct.
So if their assessment goes up, then it's going to be even more than that, obviously, depending on what their assessment comes in at. But they're advertised for a 5-cent increase. I know we're advertised at a 146 rate, and I know one of the big things was it's only a $50 increase, or it's only a $75 increase. We've been saying that same thing for the last 4 years in regards to equalizing the rate or keeping it the same. And at some point, that little bit continues to add up on top of what the county's doing. Now, granted, I understand you can't base your budget off what the county's doing, but when we're going through these economic times and we can build a budget around an equalized rate, I think it's something that we need to at least entertain.
Okay. Other thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, I just think with the uncertainties that are out there, if we can maintain it at 146, it would be a good move. There are other areas that we may have to adjust later on, but we may take a hit, and this may not be the optimistic side of me, but we may take a hit at the beginning of the fiscal year. But maintaining it at 146 may be a good idea, just to make sure that we can always adjust it later on, but we can't revert it. It's easier to revert it to equal rate, next season, but you can't start at the equalize and then change it because we hit hard times. So I just feel like the right approach is maintaining the 146. So.
Anytime I have a opportunity to reduce taxes for residents and what, I take the opportunity. So if there's ever an opportunity to vote to reduce it, I'm going to do it at any point in time. However, I do understand that, again, that these are uncertain times, and we do not know what's coming over the next month, 2, 3, 6. So, I do understand that as well. Those are my comments.
Councilman Shannon, you looks like you're ready to hit your mic mute button off.
No, once again, agree with what Councilman Morrison was saying, as well as Mr. Day there. I mean, Councilman Day. I'm one, too. I love the fact that anytime we can reduce taxes to help our citizens out, that's fine, but not at the risk of not having the money to operate as we need to. So.
At the end of the day, our goal is completely cut off the taxes. For now, just let's stay whatever we are decided before. Let's stay on that. Couple of years, we are completely cut off the property tax.
I would, yeah, well, I was going to say, I agree with Madhu. The fact that, that has always been my goal, is to be like Rosemont, Illinois, or Washington, Virginia, where the citizens of the town do not pay any additional tax for that we have enough generating income from either our meals or transit occupancy tax, as we will see soon to come online, that we can reduce this, $300 and some $1,000 bill out of a $2 million budget to zero. Maybe you have to pay for trash, maybe, because you would have to pay that fee anywhere, but you're exactly right.
But Mr. Mayor, maybe this should be the vision for the next council. Maybe that should be the vision within a year and a half, when it's time for not the next budget, but the one following that, before your 2-year term finishes. Maybe that should be our vision. Let's pray about it and let's bring it, let's start discussing.
Enough things that we've seen economically could come online that literally we could rearrange, rearrange how the taxes come in, but for the citizens, yep.
I have a 5-year tax plan that I put together last year to eliminate fully. You can implement it in this budget season and start year 1 now. Sustain it within your current budget and show how you can sustain it in your future 4-year budgets. So instead of saying we do it next year, technically speaking, we can do it now.
Yes,
but we can sustain it now.
Yes, but I think it requires more research. It requires a buy-in, not just from those who are on the dais. I think it deserves a buy-in from more of the residents in open session. So I think it's not wise to push to do it now. It's good that you have the plan, and it's a 5-year plan, so we have 4 years left. But from that plan, what I'm saying is cut it in half, and it could be our vision for to get it done by 2022.
It could all start with the 30-some thousand equalization too. And that if we could do it this year, there's a good effort of.
The reason we want to keep it the same, we have a debt that we need to clear up that.
Yeah.
As soon as we clear up that, then we will wipe it out our property tax completely.
Yeah,
The goal was, when I was, decided to come to the council, the goal was on this 2 years, we want to complete that. In day 1, I was saying, we need to complete our debt, then, generate the economic development, bring the more restaurant, bring the more businesses, then we will give our constituents whatever we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you. You have to pay down the debt and get our budget as lean as possible. And again, the vision has been since I've been on here to eliminate taxes, including trash service, for residents. That is my long-term goal. And every step we can take to get to that goal, I'm all for. But again, I agree with you. You got to pay down our current debt, and maybe moving, if we have the funds, depending on, again, how this virus thing plays out and budget thing plays out in the next 2, 3, 6 months, maybe if we have that reserve, that $30-some thousand, if we're gonna collect it, maybe we could pay that towards the debt and get that thing faster. That's again still a step towards eliminating taxes in the long run. That's still a step in that right direction. Just some thoughts.
I've been saying all along, I agree with you. When we can reduce or eliminate certain taxes, that's what we need to do. But that depends on our businesses.
Right.
What's going across the street, what may go on at the fairground. I mean, we can't do it with our current budget. So with the addition of the hotel and if the Melodania, if they come through there and all of that, we're going to be in good shape, and we can do that. We can eliminate that one tax. So, but it's business driven. I mean, we got to get these businesses in. They got to build, and because once that happens, this town's going to be fat. I think I truly believe that, and then we can in turn give back to our citizens our residents by not putting certain taxes. So,
Yep. And I think it would be a good legacy to leave behind. If we are reelected come next election, you know, it would be a good legacy to leave behind at the end of that 2-year period. So,
A business-friendly walking town.
non-taxable walking.
There you go. Like that. Absolutely.
So my question then to council is I'm misunderstood, because we're saying that we like this idea, we want to implement this idea maybe next year or the year after. But at the same time, the reason why we're not doing it this year was because we wanted to take the 31 and implement it towards our current debt. We're not going to be debt-free in 2 years. So you're saying that we're going to bring in outside funding sources to help pay off debt and be able to do this. But at the same time, we have $450,000 in this budget to allocate elsewhere. Granted, that's before making cuts because of COVID-19. But even with cuts coming in, projections coming down in regards to revenue, I'm pretty sure you can find 31,000 out of the 457 to do it now. So that's why I'm confused.
I don't think there's a confusion. We may not be debt-free in 2 years, but we could be debt-freer. We would have definitely lowered our debt in the next 2 years. So I don't think it's a matter of confusion. It's just a matter of there's uncertainty right now. And I think to rework the numbers to reduce the taxes, even to the point of elimination, I think it is way too early to do that without having a firm footing. I think the best way to go about reducing taxes is not at the beginning of a new council, because we are making decisions that's going to impact if there's a change with new members coming on council. I just think there's more wisdom in doing more research, properly vet the process that we intend to take, and start working towards that as our goal. So we promote it in the same way 5 years ago, how we started changing the face of the council. You know, we promoted it by putting the values, the core values. We promoted it by more respect for individuals on the dais. We promoted it that way. We let everyone know this is the direction that we're going to go. And once you make the decision and you're moving in that direction, people are going to come on board and they're going to realize, oh, that is where they're going. It's a scripture, Habakkuk 2:2. Write the message plain on their hearts, and they that read it will run with it. And that's what we need to be doing as a council. So for us, it's let us do the proper research. We're all heading ultimately to the same goal. But it could be unwise to rush it, especially now with the next few months coming up, not knowing what direction things are going to turn. I mean, our economy, we're still having, great increases with our stock market. We're still growing. But I think just for us to exercise wisdom is to pause a bit, still have the ultimate goal, work towards it, because everyone here shares the same view as far as where we want to get to.
And with that being said, though, every other year we are setting a budget for a new council.
That is true.
So it's...
Except.
Go ahead.
Except. You're not setting a budget every year. That's not a correct statement.
No, every other year you're you're setting a budget for a new council.
Every other year.
Correct. So
What, next year?
Your statement was that it would not be wise to set it for the upcoming council, putting it in place now. Well, next year, if the new council decides to implement it, which they're going to run off a budget that was not necessarily even theirs, then they're going to run off a budget that they set, then they're going to set a budget for possibly a new council or themselves if they get reelected. And so every other year, you're dealing with setting a budget for what could be a new council.
True, but we're going to be setting a budget next year. True? And those who are on the dais will be.
I mean, if we get reelected, of course.
Yeah, but whoever is on council in
They might have a different vision.
in April, and if that's the direction, that's democracy.
Yeah.
If they have a new vision, and they feel like, hey, erasing the taxes is not for them, and that's the direction that they're going to go.
Yeah.
But I think
we will look for what's good for the town, and that's the reason we see it, and that's the way we can do it. Let's, whatever we decided to, stay on that tax, and moving forward, bring more business, economic development, then that will generate more revenue, and we will be, financially stronger, then we can move forward.
I think the key is just not be greedy next year. Next year, when we start seeing the developments that's happening as a council, if we're still on, let's not be greedy. let us still have that vision. And that's why it's important to have the vision, because the reason why I use the word greed is if you start seeing all this money coming in from new developments, you might then set new vision and you erase that vision that we're sharing.
I think we all agreed, and correct me if I'm misstating here, but I think we all agreed that the number one of this extra monies is to pay down the debt.
Yes.
I mean, I thought that was our
Yes.
overall agreement. So at the end of the day, as their budget, it comes to any monies that we have extra, were designated or demarked for the reduction of the debt. And it's sooner that we got the debt reduced, then those other monies that we are paying for debt service then can go into reducing the overall tax.
Exactly.
So I think we're all in the same train, going the same direction. We're in different cars, and with a different,
Some
maybe,
driving trucks.
and some in the front, some in the back, you know, but, yeah. So, okay. Mr. Kuhn.
Just talking about the debt and what other localities are doing, I just wanted to share with you all. Recently, the town of Purcellville actually just reached out to some local banks in their area, and they were able to cut their rate after the Fed dropped the rates so substantially. But what they actually did is they refinanced, and they were able to save a substantial amount of money. So I just wanted you all to know that we're going to try and reach out and see if that is an option for the town as well. Granted, we have been paying down our debt, and we don't have quite as much as Purcellville did. But depending on what rates come back, it may or may not be advantageous. But that is just something that we're looking at on this end. You know, with the rates dropping, that may be an option for us to look into to save money.
Right.
That's great. Every little bit helps. That's awesome.
Could we add that to the agenda, like as a?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll see
To
if
make
there's
sure that
something-
it doesn't,
if there's something that we can
a
add
month
on.
goes by and
Oh.
and we're still thinking about it. So
No,
we could
absolutely.
add it.
Yep. Kim has made note of that. What else? I think that we get everything covered with our, with this handout, and we're going?
I think that would be to have the will of the council. I don't know, as we're suspending ARB meetings and PC meetings, I'm sure, and all other committee meetings, I think what would be best is for council to go line by line and see where they think they could make cuts on to come back for our April meeting to be able to go from there. I don't believe the finance meeting would be meeting, just like the PC's not, ARB's not, X, Y, and Z. But at this point, where does everyone feel that they can make cuts at? Everyone's obviously going to have a difference of opinion. And then that way, we've technically will end up going line by line in those matters.
So as a directive, we'll all take this home, and I'll report to Roberto and Chris of any areas that of concern or that they feel that they can. Would that be a good directive? Any objection to that directive, I guess? Okay. And of course, we need to advertise that or publish that, so as you do the reversal in our April meeting, so the week prior to our meeting, which would be next week, correct? April 5th, 6th.
I'm sorry, Mayor, what are you advertising for?
No, just that, the fact that when we actually put out our agenda packet, we needed almost like 5 days prior to that Monday.
Well,
The
Yeah.
meeting is April 6th, so to get stuff for in the agenda, I would be posting it on the 3rd. I would really.
And so Roberto would need it by, like-
1st or 2nd of April.
Right.
Mayor, I believe what I was talking about was, if I'm not mistaken, Roberto's budget that he has is based off what he's comfortable with. What I was stating, that if council feels there's areas to cut, council goes line by line and brings their ideas to the meeting and goes through that.
Yeah, that'd be fair enough. That's, all right.
I mean, that would be my take on the expenditure side. If we're going to continue moving forward with working off the current budget that we have drafted as is, it's gone through the finance committee. I don't see why Roberto would be making any more changes, because Roberto and the finance committee met to discuss this.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And
Correct.
so what I'm
you
saying is
bring it
that
to the council.
it's
Correct.
at the council's level now, and
Right.
council can go line by line, bring up what ones that they think is heavy, whatever, and we can all answer questions and talk about it.
Yeah, I think we
at
did that,
meeting.
actually, one thing, one meeting that we did. I can remember we actually went, there were some concerns about each line item, so you brought your line item to there, and then we did a straw vote around the dais there, and only let the council speak, and either your line item that you decided you wanted to cut, and if it didn't make it, then it was left as is. So that's a good suggestion. That we'll do that for our next meeting then. So if there's any areas you bring in your item.
I think what Mr. Leak is suggesting is that individual council members do their own homework and not just take what the finance committee and the staff has put together. Each person should do their own homework, bring their concerns, areas that they think needs to be cut. Am I correct?
Correct. So as in last meeting, Vice Mayor asked if we were going to go line by line, and I stated that the Finance Committee had gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, but if someone wanted to go line by line, we are more than willing and capable of doing so. And as of speaking with other folks who are running for council, it was their suggestion to do the same. And I said we were very open to that. We stated in our last meeting, and we can easily do it. And I feel like that's to where, I mean, going line by line here, I'm comfortable if we're keeping our draft budget, thinking that our revenues are coming in where it is. I'm comfortable where the draft budget is. But if someone wants to have a discussion on a particular line item, I think that I have no issue going and discussing it. Now, at the same time, I think council should also take the time to look at and make up a worst-case scenario and start saying, well, worst-case revenue projections, we're not getting over this COVID thing. Let's do that. Now, I don't think that's necessary for the April meeting. I don't think we need to do two budgets at the same time, but that's something that I think council should think on the back of their head and then be able to present, and we can cross that bridge if necessary in May or June, if that's a necessary means. But right now, if we're working off this base budget that we're looking at, thinking everything's going to be fine July 1, Finance Committee and Madhu and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're comfortable with what we presented.
Okay.
Unless I'm speaking out of turn, but that's why we brought this budget to council.
One second, Vice Mayor.
My point was that when this budget was put together, that the situation in our economy and our circumstances was completely different. So to just move forward and not even consider that, to me, is foolish.
Well, yeah, and I think there's a difference with the one that we've got tonight versus the one that was originally presented, if I'm not correct. Is that correct, Roberto? Your draft here is going through a little bit more.
So the revised draft there is basically running off the similar concept from the last one. But to address Vice Mayor's comment, that's why I have stated that we, between Chris, myself, and Connor, we have come up with scenarios if we needed to do certain cuts, where we could do it. We've been looking into where in the expenditure size we could cut more. But what I'm presenting here, and I guess just following suit with Connor, is kind of more like the sense of where the council wants to go. Do they want to move forward with this existing budget and then come, with the new council or who's back, if they want to amend it, we can do so then, or do we do those changes now, have the discussion, do those changes now, so we come in with a different budget that would probably be a lot less than this one. That's kind of where this conversation was hoping to get an answer to, is if we're moving forward with this budget, or are we going to look into actually modifying the budget due to what's going on currently.
Okay.
And that's what I want. I think we need a plan B.
Okay. Mr. Kuhn.
So one thing that I think would be helpful is if council does want to move forward with editing the budget, I think if we can try and come up with a number. So, if we think that we would like to try and cut 5%, if we want to try and cut 10%, I think that's a good start. And then as we talk to the localities and things like that, we can kind of see how they're anticipating that this will affect them. But I do think that is a smart move, is that if we, try and set a number, 5, 10%, something like that, and that gives us a goal and a task that at least staff can look through and try and edit the revenues and some of the expenditures, and we can move forward with a little bit different budget than what we have currently in front of you today.
I would like to see the list of things that you guys have been considering.
We can go over that. Do you have the ability to go through it right now?
Let's go through it right now.
Yeah, we have the time. We're here. Let's go.
Is it okay if I lead? Roberto, Chris, you good if I lead?
Yeah,
I can't
it's
hear
fine.
Connor very well.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say,
Yeah, bring
Connor.
it.
I'm fine with you leading, but if you can move the microphone closer, because you're
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay. All right, so at the top of the list, this one was added in, wasn't discussed earlier in our phone call, but under expense, under administration, town council, removing salaries and wages for town council, you could save $32,000 right there. I'll wait for everyone to get on the same page with me.
So we're on page, let's go by page number, so.
I don't know the page, I'm
Oh.
going off an Excel sheet.
Oh, okay.
But we're under expenses, line item 11100, town council.
Page 3, there we go. There we go. Expense town council.
Expenses, town council, removing salaries and wages for town council. You could save
So-
under FICA Medicare and salaries and wages, and you could save $34,000 there.
So just, let me see if there even is a consensus to that. If we were to take away our salary, I mean, this is obviously a stipling. We're not here for this thing. We do get the stipling, but is that something that the council would entertain? Of course, you're passing this along to our current, that we could be, and our future budget, so,
Cutting salaries and wages?
yeah, for,
I'm okay with it.
for council.
Yes.
Councilman Day?
I'm open to the possibility, absolutely. I mean,
Councilman
if-
Morris.
yeah.
I am open to it. My only concern is making a decision like this for a new council that's coming on. So that's my only concern, but I think
That's my
that's.
idea too.
Possibly a returning council member, you could be, you would be okay as a returning council member. Obviously, you couldn't speak for someone else that got elected, but even currently, for myself, I would definitely do it. Matter of fact, I would do it starting now, literally. There's a little bit of savings, but absolutely. Councilman Leake?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Shannon?
I would. I made this comment before when somebody made some kind of foolish statement here at a public hearing. If, I'm not in this for the money.
Yeah. Vice Mayor, just for,
I share Chris's concerns. I mean, we're not supposed to give pay raises or anything to a council until it goes to the next council. I would hate to give them a pay cut, and I mean, I don't know.
It's a good
it's
idea.
just a
Let's move on.
philosophy. I mean,
Again,
it's
the question was, where were the ideas at? So
Okay.
And,
So
and-
if you
and
want,
I think we should just share the comments. The rest of the council can either look at it in their own view and said, hey, I wouldn't go with this, or I
Yes.
would go with this, and just keep moving. So, Mr. Mayor, if we can just have Connor run it, just run the ideas.
Yeah, so there again, that's a good thought, but I would just wanted to see if there was a pulse that it's
I
something
was
that we
just
would
hoping for
consider.
an email list of what's out there.
Okay, so,
What work they have been done. I didn't necessarily mean that we have to go through this right now.
no, that's all right. I think it's probably a short list, so we could definitely keep going. So we have 32,000, that's a possibility. What
plus
else?
FICA Medicare there, there's another two.
1,000 for FICA.
Part-time under town admin, we cut part-time down, depending on the need of.
I'm having a hard time hearing Connor.
Yep. So-
Depending on the need of the part-time position, and how many hours are needed, and as Chris has come in and been able to reallocate job duties, job titles, there's money savings in part-time. To what extent, depends on what council, if they just want to cut a certain portion or cut all of it, that is the ability to do so. We'll
That's
note,
50,000 there.
well, it all depends on what, plus or minus, all depends on what you do. I reduced it by 30. We have the possibility of savings under health insurance. We have an employee that's not on a family plan. Enrollment opens up here in the next month and closes on May 5th. So there's the ability to, if the family plan is not taken again, there's roughly $17,000 in savings there. As we continue to move down, Chief has gone through his budget and has done a worst-case scenario if he needs to cut. We have roughly $6,000 in holiday pay. We have roughly $5,000 in part-time pay. We have roughly $7,000 in computer, internet, websites.
6,000
Part-time, 6,000 holiday, 5,000 part-time, 7,000 on internet and something?
Internet, website, computer.
Okay.
That's not under public safety.
Yes, sir, it is. Public safety, police department, OT, or right under holiday pay, 3110004.
Okay. Right now, currently has it at 17,000.
What's the reduction on that?
6,000.
And the part-time?
Time minus 5. Computer, net, website, minus 7,000.
Minus 7,000?
Yes.
And we're on page 4 at the bottom.
Thank you, Connor.
Postage, minus 200.
Did you say 200?
Yes, sir.
2 with 2 zeros.
200.00. Convention education, minus 2,000. Miscellaneous, minus 1,500. Annual dues and subscriptions, minus 2,500. Office supplies, minus 2,000. Vehicle fuels, minus 3,000. Uniforms and police supplies, minus 12,000. Community
Sorry, how
events,
much?
12,000. Community events, minus 2,000. And this is where you kind of get into your bigger chunks of change, and that's where I'm saying that there's cuts to be made without having to walk through line by line, where you can easily cut out of our quote-unquote project costs, where my recommendation would be, prior to cutting town admins or police departments' budgets, because those are very lean as is, but this is where you get into town public works. You could reduce that by roughly 20,000. Granted, we need to get new quotes for the stamp paving of the crosswalks, so that's a little bit of a question mark there. We need all the money that's necessary in the maintenance of Washington Street's 15-100s, unless you want to start talking about snow, but nobody likes to talk about that, so we won't. Haymarket Community Park, we could reduce by 28,000 down to 30,000. You could probably even reduce it more. The main fees that we have there is the duty calls, as well as just general upkeep, and I would have to refer to Roberto what that monthly fee is, but we could probably even get it less than 28 if necessary. Under the museum, advertising minus 500, books, dues, and subscriptions minus 250, exhibits and programs. This would be running nothing out of the museum, which would not be a recommendation, but you can minus 1,700 there. Planning Commission, you could do the same thing with Town Council. You could remove the salaries and wages, 5,670. Same thing out of FICA and Medicare, minus 500. Consultants, engineering, that's a pass-through. Comp plan, we could push the comp plan off, minus 40,000. I would recommendation of leaving convention education to allow them to further their education on it if they like to. Architectural Review Board, same thing, you can minus salaries and wages of 7,830, minus FICA Medicare 850. leave the conventions and education. Speaking with a board member, Mr. Schneider, he asked if we had the ability to increase convention and education by $1,000. I told him I don't see why the council would not be able to do so. So that would be a plus 1,000 on that. BZA, same thing. You could reduce salaries and wages there, FICA and Medicare as well. And looking at the pedestrian street project, it looks like it's going to be spread over 2 budget cycles. I'm still waiting on the exact draw plan from them, but it's looking at starting possibly in May and ending with the punch list in August. So that would be a reduction of half of that, so 250 there. Pedestrian improvement project other. Now, the only question we would need to confirm through Katie with VDOT is would VDOT, since we're doing a funds match and we're putting up the full amount, do we have to show the amount that we're carrying with VDOT on the next year's budget, or can it be split between the two, so that we would just need a clarification with Katie and VDOT on what VDOT would require with seeing on our books there. Blight mitigation is already funded out of reserves. I don't like that it's funded out of reserves. I think it should be funded out of operational, but it's currently funded out of reserves. You could minus 20,000, but that would not be out of your budget technically, because you're only borrowing it from reserves to put in there.
Well, that didn't take very long. So what's the total? If you were to strip everything out right there?
Give me 5 minutes, I can get you the total.
All right. He says, if you have a calculator.
Mr. Morris, you got a calculator?
Yeah, I was going to say.
You have an Excel on that, all right?
Yeah. See Roberto feverishly typing away.
Mr. Mayor, while
Yes,
he's
sure.
calculating here, the reduction in salaries for the ARB, for the Planning Commission, is that our decision or is that theirs?
Attorney? Just the stipends that we give to the different committees, is that council decision, is the question?
I apologize, I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Because I'm just thinking, I mean, knowing the folks that I know, and I don't know if they'll be new folks or whatever, but I don't think anybody's in this for the money, obviously. But I just think if they should have a say in this.
I agree. I think they should, if we choose as a council to go this route, is to be able to approach them and have them discuss it as a body,
Right.
and then their recommendations can come to us. And if they as a body recommend no, they want to keep it, I think we should respect it.
I agree.
All right, let me see if there's anything we can do in the meantime of this.
Roughly speaking, Mayor, 484,923.
484.
484,923. You could go even higher if you remove all your funds out of CIP. So if you removed your 103,956.44 out of CIP, you're up to 588,879. Now, granted, your kicker on there is you're removing practically all your project costs, so you get absolutely nothing done outside of running the town, having commissions and boards. There would be no projects that would be able to be technically completed. But there's about 600,000's worth of quote-unquote savings.
You're saying what's your debt? I was asking, thinking what's our real estate tax for, what is it, 2020 is, what are we looking at?
The residents, the
400?
residents themselves.
402?
402. The residents themselves pay 265, 569, and the commercially zoned properties pay 137, 353.
Wow, different way of thinking, huh? Where do we put the priorities? Where do we put the tax burden? This is a good exercise. It gives a lot of thought, you know. Obviously, something that can't be decided tonight, but definitely, I think, worth thinking about. and asking the questions. Wow.
Maybe I missed, when is our budget public hearing?
That's not set yet. We have to set our tax rates before we do our budget public hearing.
Yeah.
So once we set our tax rates on what we're going to project our revenue streams to be, then we'll set a public hearing for our budget itself.
And I think at the worst case, you can always set it at the same rate, which sounds like there is at least consensus of some council members to set it at the same rate. There might be, I'm not sure how this would go, but there might be even a tie vote for an equalization without doing it with, well, where would we get it from?
No, where are you getting that from?
What? Because I think Councilman Panthy would vote for it, and I'm not sure Councilman Day, I believe he would vote for it. And I believe Councilman Leek might even vote for it without even knowing how you would vote.
For
Equalization, yeah.
No, I will not. I will vote whatever we decide.
There again, I might have put.
.146.
Okay, so the equal.
Mayor, I don't know where the mayor's getting his
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
thought, yeah. But anyways, there might be,
I would be with that as well.
yeah, without any equalization.
Correct.
Okay.
I
Vice
thought
Mayor,
we-
you
I
had.
thought we talked about this,
Yeah.
And we agreed
I
then.
don't think so. We have to.
what we were going to do. I thought we already came to that.
Okay.
Mr. Day
Okay.
was the only one who was undecided
Yeah.
at this point.
Okay.
But now you
But I
decided.
have $5.
Yeah. And Vice Mayor, I forgot where you stood on that. Apologies. Equalization versus keeping the same tax rate.
Same tax rate.
Okay. Maybe I don't have the 3-3 then. Apologies. Maybe it's wishful thinking.
You only have one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice try.
Okay, all right. Get to be able to put that tie vote in there maybe sometime this year, right? Okay,
The mayor is eager to make a decision.
just trying to, yeah. All right, the only other thing, we do need to go into closed session for tonight. Yes, sir, we do. So if I could have Brett bring us into closed session and for that purpose.
The form of the motion is the council convene in closed session to discuss, as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2, 3711A7, for the purposes of consulting with legal counsel and briefings by staff, members, or consults regarding the pending case of Blue Sky Events LLC versus the town of Haymarket, and as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A8, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice from such counsel, specifically the memorandum of understanding with Haymarket Hotel Ventures LLC.
Okay? So, so moved by Councilman Morris.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Shannon. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, great. So just for the listening public here, we're going to go into closed session. We will also electronically continue to have Vice Mayor in their closed session, as she will then certify as well, coming out of closed session.
Are we staying on Zoom or are we going to speakerphone?
No, you're going to be on Zoom on this private connection, and we're going to take you into there. No. I think it's best